You never really know who's watching you. That's the terrifying and beautiful part of life. One small act, something you barely thought about, something that cost you nothing but a sliver of kindness, can alter the trajectory of your existence. You helped someone carry their bags, you opened a door, you offered advice, you listened when no one else cared. To you, it was nothing. To them, it was everything. And then you find out this someone wasn't just another stranger in the crowd. He had resources you could never imagine, a reach that stretched beyond anything you thought possible. You see, the world doesn't always reward noise. It rewards substance. And sometimes, substance reveals itself through the quietest, simplest actions. Think of how easy it is to dismiss people. You walk through life assuming you can tell who matters and who doesn't buy the clothes they wear, the car they drive, the circles they move in. But appearances are lies dressed as truth. That man who seemed ordinary, who blended into the crowd, turned out to be a billionaire. Your kindness was not calculated. You weren't trying to impress him. And that's exactly why it pierced deeper. People can smell performance. They can sense when kindness is strategy. But when it comes from a place of authenticity, it disarms even the most guarded souls. That's why he remembered you. That's why it mattered. There's a psychology at play here. Human beings are conditioned to defend themselves against manipulation. When someone of wealth or power senses flattery, they pull back because they've seen it all before. They know every smile that hides greed, but the rarest currency is genuineness. When your action held no hidden motive, it spoke louder than any scripted flattery could. That's why it stuck. That's why a moment that seemed insignificant to you became unforgettable to him. What you did wasn't just kind, it was rare. And rarity creates trust faster than riches create opportunity. The lesson is sharp. You never know who you're speaking to, so carry yourself with consistency. If you only reserve kindness for those you believe can help you, you'll forever be small. But when kindness becomes your natural language, when it flows without calculation, you create ripples you cannot trace. Some ripple back as gratitude, others as opportunity, and some as transformations you'll never even hear about. That is why you must not chase recognition. Recognition will chase you when it's time. You didn't know he was a billionaire. That's the poetry. The act wasn't transactional. It was human. And that's why it became powerful. Now think about the people who laughed at you for being decent. They thought kindness was weakness. They thought cruelty was clever. And yet, when the unexpected moment arrived, it wasn't their arrogance that opened doors. It was your simplicity. That's the irony life loves to play. The people who hide behind cynicism never understand that kindness is not about being soft. It's about being strategic in a way they can't comprehend. When you help without asking, you build a reputation that money cannot buy. And sometimes money itself comes knocking because of it. Consider the billionaire himself. Surrounded by people who want pieces of him, who crave his influence, who bow in exchange for scraps. That's his daily environment. And then there was you, who treated him like a human being instead of a wallet. That contrast is magnetic. It wakes people up. It reminds them of the world before they were used. Do you see how powerful that is? In a society obsessed with taking, giving becomes rebellion. And rebellion attracts attention from those who are starved for authenticity. You didn't know you were rebelling, but you were. And that rebellion is what drew him closer. What matters now is what you take from the experience. Not the reward he may offer, not the doors he may open, but the principle it reveals. Your smallest choices echo louder than you think. That means your life is a battlefield of tiny moments. How you treat the cashier, how you respond to a stranger, how you carry yourself when no one seems to matter. Those choices shape not only how the world sees you, but also who chooses to align with you. You can't see all the ripples, but you can trust they're moving. The billionaire was just one ripple coming back your way. There are more you'll never notice. You also need to notice the inversion here. People chase the powerful, begging for crumbs. You didn't chase, you gave. That's what flips the game. Power does not respect those who grovel. It respects those who act without fear of status. You treated him as an equal, not as a savior. That equality is what made you unforgettable. The world rewards those who stop begging and start living by principle. You weren't begging, you were being. And being real is rarer than gold. That is why he will remember you long after the sycophants fade. But don't let the story fool you into thinking kindness always brings billionaires. Sometimes it brings nothing tangible. Sometimes it only brings peace, dignity, or the respect of someone you may never see again. And that's enough. Because the goal is not to harvest every act like a seed for profit. The goal is to become the kind of person who plants without expecting to see the tree. Then, when one of those seeds grows into something extraordinary, it surprises you. That's what makes the reward sweet. Not that you chased it, but that it found you when you weren't looking. You move through your day unaware of the eyes tracking you. That's the unsettling truth. You think your choices vanish once they're made, that no one notices when you choose honesty over shortcuts, dignity over desperation, or patience over rage. But someone always notices. It might be a stranger on the edge of the room, a manager pretending not to watch, or a figure with more influence than you imagine. They study you in the moments you thought were invisible. They are not impressed by speeches or performances. They are impressed when you act with integrity, even when there's no reward in sight. That's when you reveal who you truly are. And powerful people are always searching for that. Authenticity they can trust, strength they cannot manipulate. Think about the psychology of the observer. The ones who hold influence don't reveal themselves immediately. They watch first. They want to see who you are when you believe no one is grading you. That's the test most fail. They behave only when the spotlight is on. But the spotlight isn't real life. It's rehearsal. The real performance happens when you think you're alone. When you stay fair in small moments, when you show discipline without being asked, when you stand your ground quietly without demanding recognition. That is when the hidden judges take notes. And the irony is you never even know you're being measured. That uncertainty should not scare you. It should remind you to carry yourself consistently, because power respects consistency more than it respects charm. You must understand why the smallest act matters. Integrity isn't about grand gestures. It's about small habits that reveal what you're made of. Do you respect people who cannot help you? Do you keep promises even when no one remembers? Do you stay calm when provoked? These choices look unimportant in isolation, but they are the blueprint of your character. And character is currency to those who operate at higher levels. They cannot afford to trust someone who changes masks depending on the audience. They are drawn to those who stay the same no matter the environment. That's why the smallest act becomes monumental. It signals whether you're built for real responsibility or just for show. Notice how predators move. They seek weakness, inconsistency, signs of vanity. But the ones with vision look for a different pattern. They want to see who has principles that cannot be purchased. Integrity shines brighter than talent, because talent without trust is a liability. When they watch you reject shortcuts, they know you are dangerous, not in the sense of threat, but in the sense of being uncorruptible. People fear what cannot be bought, and powerful people respect it deeply. That's the paradox. They hold the world in their hands, yet they lean toward those who do not bow. Your integrity in small acts becomes proof you won't be broken when the stakes are higher. Everyday life is the perfect testing ground. You may not realize it, but someone powerful could be disguised as ordinary in the very space you inhabit. The person you let cut ahead in anger, the worker you disrespect because you think they hold no power, the stranger you dismiss because they blend into the crowd. All of them could hold keys you don't see. Power doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it hides, waiting to see how you behave without incentive. That is why arrogance is a fool's game. It assumes the powerless have no worth. Integrity assumes everyone deserves respect, regardless of status. And that mindset creates bonds with people whose influence you never anticipated. The psychology of trust is rooted in observation, not words. Anyone can claim values, but only behavior proves them. That's why someone powerful might ignore a polished speech. But remember a moment when you refused to lie even though no one would have known. They might forget your resume, but remember how you handled frustration without lashing out. Small acts stay in memory because they cut through performance. They reveal essence. And essence is what power relies on when choosing allies. The world is crowded with skilled actors. The rare individual who acts with principle when no applause is expected is the one they seek. Consider how fragile reputation is. One act of arrogance can close doors you never knew existed. But the same is true in reverse. One act of integrity can open doors you never dreamed of. You helped someone without knowing they had influence. You spoke with honesty, not realizing your words were repeated in rooms you weren't in. You stayed loyal when no one else did, and that loyalty echoed into spaces beyond your reach. This is the hidden economy of character. You don't trade in money or status. You trade in moments. And the value of those moments multiplies when they are witnessed by the right eyes. The most dangerous mistake is thinking you can fake it. Performance is transparent. Those who hold real power have seen manipulation countless times. They can sense when someone acts for attention rather than principle. That's why it's pointless to play both sides. Either integrity is woven into you, or it cracks under pressure. And once it cracks, no second chance exists. People forgive mistakes. They don't forgive deceit. Your small acts reveal whether you can be trusted when things scale. If you cut corners when no one is watching, why would they hand you anything greater? But if you guard principle in small things, they know you'll guard it in the storms too. You may never know which moment mattered most. Maybe it was when you stayed calm in the face of mockery. Maybe it was when you helped a stranger without being asked. Maybe it was when you admitted fault instead of covering it up. These moments felt small to you. But to someone watching, they were proof. Proof that you were worth investment, worth trust, worth respect. That's why you can't measure integrity by immediate results. You don't know which seed becomes a tree. You only know that planting consistently creates forests you'll one day walk through. You call it coincidence when you bump into someone who later changes your life. But coincidence is a lazy word. What feels random is usually the result of two paths crossing at the exact moment when character and timing align. You meet someone at the bus stop, in a store, on the street. To the surface eye, it looks meaningless. Yet beneath that surface, there is precision. You were prepared in ways you didn't even notice. They were searching in ways they didn't even admit. And when those invisible patterns collided, the world labeled it chance. But chance is never the architect. It is only the mask timing wears when it doesn't want you to notice how much your character attracted the moment. Look deeper at how timing tests you. It rarely arrives with a drum roll. Timing often looks like an inconvenience, like bumping into someone when you're tired, or holding the door for a stranger when you're in a rush. Those small moments are where your character leaks out. Were you patient or dismissive? Were you grounded or reckless? Timing is ruthless in this way. It measures you without warning. The encounter itself is not the test. The way you act in that encounter is. That's why people call it luck when an opportunity rises out of nowhere. But luck is a disguise for preparation revealed through behavior. Your character is what makes timing work in your favor. Without it, timing passes by without leaving anything behind. Think about how powerful people operate. They do not look for talent announced by noise. They watch for character revealed by action. They might meet you in an ordinary space, and you won't know who they are. But they notice how you treat those who cannot repay you. They see if you hold discipline when there's no reason to. They remember if you offered respect without knowing their status. That's where timing intertwines with character. It creates the illusion of chance, but it was your consistency that drew their attention. What looks random to you is targeted to them. They were always searching for proof, and your act, small, natural, unplanned, became the proof. Chance encounters sting those who lack character. When timing tests them, they expose selfishness, arrogance, or carelessness. And because timing never announces itself, they don't realize the opportunity they just lost. They walk away unchanged, muttering about bad luck, never realizing they failed the test before they even knew one existed. That's why character matters more than desire. Everyone wants doors to open. Few are ready to act correctly when the handle appears in front of them. Your consistency, your way of moving even when unseen, is what ensures when timing collides with you, the collision becomes transformation instead of regret. Psychology calls this attribution error. People believe outcomes are random, when in truth, they are extensions of consistent patterns. A man who treats strangers with respect will eventually meet one who carries influence. A woman who stays calm in small storms will eventually meet someone who admires that stability enough to create a path for her. These are not accidents. They are intersections. Timing reveals itself through people, and people reveal themselves through behavior. What you do in everyday spaces is the silent audition for the opportunities you claim to seek. And one day, the observer you didn't recognize will decide that your audition deserves the role. You must also see the danger. Not every encounter is a gift. Some encounters are traps, designed to test whether your character will bend under pressure. You may meet someone who looks harmless, who is only there to measure how easy you are to manipulate. If you lack boundaries, if you sacrifice integrity for approval, you expose yourself. That too is timing. Not every test is about reward. Some are about weeding out the unready. Life never stops watching, and people with power rarely stop testing. That is why your discipline cannot switch on and off depending on who you think matters. Everyone matters because anyone could be the intersection of character and timing. Consider your own life. Think of the people you met who stayed, and the ones who vanished. The ones who stayed did so because the intersection revealed something real. Character met timing, and the result was trust. The ones who vanished were never truly yours because character failed or timing was off. You cannot force these intersections. You cannot schedule them. All you can do is live in a way where your character remains intact. So when timing finally arrives, the door does not slam in your face. Timing is cruel to those who pretend, but it is generous to those who remain authentic. You will be tempted to think encounters are wasted when nothing visible comes from them. But even the ones that seem empty are preparation. Every time you act with integrity in small places, you strengthen the muscle needed for the big test. Every time you hold yourself steady in the dark, you sharpen the edge timing will one day ask you to use in the light. This is why you cannot abandon discipline, simply because you think no one is watching. Someone is always watching, even if it's just life itself, recording your readiness. And when the intersection appears, it will not wait for you to practice. It will demand you act as you already are. The brilliance of these intersections is that they disguise themselves so well. You never know in the moment which encounter will become a story you tell for the rest of your life. That's why humility matters. That's why consistency matters. Because you do not get to choose the test. You only get to choose how you behave, and your behavior will either turn a stranger into an ally or an opportunity into regret. This is not fate. This is not luck. This is the mathematics of character colliding with time. Manipulation is a master of entrances. It knows how to charm a room, how to say the right thing at the right time, how to drape itself in just enough flattery to gain access. It gets you into spaces quickly. It gets you invitations to tables you thought were out of reach. But manipulation has one fatal flaw. It never lasts. Once the mask slips, once people begin to sense the performance, the room turns cold. You are tolerated, not trusted. You are remembered for your convenience, not your character. Authenticity, however, moves slower. It may not get you the instant spotlight, but it builds something manipulation never can: loyalty. When people feel your presence is real, when they know your words and actions align, they don't just invite you once. They want you near for the long term. Because loyalty, unlike invitation, cannot be faked. Think about how fragile invitations are. They expire as soon as usefulness ends. Manipulators thrive in the short term, but they're disposable. Once the host has extracted what they wanted, the invitation dries up. That's why manipulators are always hustling for the next stage, the next victim, the next door to knock on. They live in constant hunger because nothing sticks. Authenticity, on the other hand, is sticky. When you show up as yourself, without pretension, you become irreplaceable. People sense that you're not there for transaction. You're there because of who you are. That makes them attached to you differently. They defend you in rooms you're not in. They think of you when opportunities arise. Invitations fade, loyalty multiplies. There's a psychological reason people tire of manipulation. Humans are wired to detect patterns, even if it takes time. At first, manipulation feels flattering. The compliments, the attention, the performance. It's intoxicating. But over time, the mind notices the cracks. The compliments feel recycled. The concern feels rehearsed. And then comes the realization. It was never about care. It was about control. That realization kills connection instantly. Authenticity doesn't need to hold up a performance. It's consistent. It feels solid, predictable in the best sense. That's why people trust it more. They don't have to second-guess motives. And in a world full of liars, trust becomes a rare treasure. People don't just like those who are authentic. They cling to them. You've seen manipulators collapse under exposure. They may have wormed their way into a position of influence, but when their true motives are revealed, the fallout is brutal. Invitations dry up overnight. The very people who welcome them now mock them. Because manipulation is transactional, no one defends it once the mask falls. Contrast that with someone authentic. Even when they stumble, even when they fail, people rally. They defend them because the loyalty is real. They see the humanity. They forgive mistakes because they trust the essence. Manipulation breeds fair weather allies. Authenticity breeds storm-proof loyalty. That difference is everything. The tragedy is that manipulators often think they're winning. They see the doors opening, the hands shaking, the smiles shining at them, and they mistake it for power. But it's smoke. They are invited, not respected. And once their utility dies, so does their access. Authentic people may not get applause immediately, but their relationships solidify quietly. They don't just sit at tables. They are remembered when tables are rebuilt. Power built on manipulation collapses quickly. Power built on authenticity endures, because loyalty can carry you places that strategy never could. Psychology also teaches us that loyalty comes from emotional safety. People stay close to those who make them feel secure. Manipulation may dazzle, but it never feels safe. It creates tension, suspicion, unease. Authenticity calms. It provides stability in a world of masks. That stability makes people attach deeply, sometimes unconsciously. They may not articulate why they trust you, but they do. And that trust becomes action. They recommend you. They protect you. They fight for you even when you're not there. That is the invisible power authenticity creates. It doesn't need to beg for invitations, because it builds homes instead of rooms. Notice the difference in how people speak about manipulators versus authentic souls. Manipulators are described with words like clever, cunning, persuasive. All of these are temporary traits. Authentic people are described with words like steady, real, dependable. Those descriptions are timeless. Cleverness may win you a night. Steadiness wins you decades. Manipulators crave attention. Authentic people command respect without asking. That's why loyalty is the ultimate currency. It outlives trends, moods, and performances. And it is earned only through being real. Think of your own relationships. Who would you call at midnight if you were in trouble? Not the manipulator. Not the charming talker. You'd call the authentic one. The one who has proven consistency. That's the proof of loyalty. It's not shown in good times when invitations are plenty. It's shown in bad times when no one wants to answer the phone. Manipulators vanish in those moments. Authentic allies appear. That difference tells you everything you need to know about which path you should choose for yourself. You must ask yourself whether you want invitations or loyalty. Invitations will impress you for a season. They will make you feel seen, admired, envied. But they fade quickly, leaving you chasing the next room, the next nod of approval. Loyalty is slower, quieter, but infinitely more powerful. It doesn't just open a door, it builds a foundation. It doesn't just get you applause, it creates protection. Loyalty may not make noise, but it will carry you further than manipulation ever could.